if you need to bounce, then you can certainly do that. And I'll spend a few minutes after kind of deep diving into this stuff. I'm going to give you all the information that you need in the first 10 minutes. At Tomorrow's Police Officer, my goal is to share on the weekends things about relationships. It's all about communication mastery. How do you communicate with the people that you work with, your colleagues, the community, your cohabitants, the people that live with you, and in commerce, if you are working in a business, if you're an entrepreneur, how are you communicating with your clients? So the 4 C's: colleagues, community, cohabitants, and commerce. So in the area of communication mastery, what I do on the weekends, because normally the weekends we're spending time with our families, is I talk about specifically relationships. Now this week I've been talking about the amygdala hijack. Remember, the amygdala is the fear center of your brain. It handles other emotions too, but if you remember it as a fear center of your brain, or the reptile brain, the lizard brain, it's easy to remember the effect of the amygdala. Because when you're in fear, the amygdala kicks in your fight or flight response. Remember, there's only 5 things that happen during a fight or flight response: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, make friends. That's 4 things. There might be 5th. Anyway, those are the key things that you do. And we're talking about the fight right now. How in a relationship, when you're in communication with somebody, when your amygdala gets hijacked, your brain gets hijacked. How do you recognize that? I covered that the other day, and I've created a tool for you to know when in advance, by looking back, when in advance are you likely to run across this situation again when you know that your brain gets hijacked. Someone reaches into your brain, flips a switch, and just sets you off. They push your buttons. There's some people who are really good at being button pushers. So the question then becomes, how do we predict that's going to happen? My good friend Gordon Graham says, what's predictable is preventable. What's predictable is preventable. So when you can predict it, and you predict it because it's happened before, which means it's likely it's going to happen again, now you can work to prevent it. So the worksheet that I created, it's a real simple exercise for you to be able to identify, when have I lost my cool before? What exactly was going on? So when I start to see those situations happen again, that I can be prepared for it and I can respond differently. Today, what I want to talk about is, you're in that situation where your buttons are being pushed and you recognize, oh, it's happening. I'm starting, the temperature's rising, like that song, only this time it's not good. It's not a good temperature rise, not for the right reasons. But you feel yourself starting to get upset. You notice that you're more tense. You hear that you're talking louder. Or maybe, just maybe, you're the calm one, and the person that you're talking to is getting upset, and you recognize, whoa, I have said or done something, didn't mean to, but I've said or done something that's setting them off. You recognize that somehow you have hijacked the other person's amygdala. They're going into a fight or flight response. You've triggered their sympathetic nervous system. Now, those are 2 different situations. When you recognize it in yourself, when you recognize it's happening to someone else. Today, I'm going to talk about, what do you do when it's happening to you? I didn't mean that to rhyme, but it did. So we'll roll with it. What do you do when it's happening to you? Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about, what do you do when you recognize it's happening to someone else? How can you help them? How can you reach inside their head and flip that switch and get them back to calm? I'm going to show you some amazing ways to do that. Today, we need to reach inside our own brain, flip our switch, and get us back to calm. So here's one thing that you can do. I'm only going to give you a couple, but these that I'm going to give you, they're easy to understand. They're easy to remember, and they're even easier to implement. Everything that I teach at Tomorrow's Police Officer falls under those categories. Easy to understand, easy to remember, even easier to implement. So that doesn't mean that you're going to do it every time. We're human beings, for crying out loud. Of course, we're going to make mistakes. Question becomes, are we going to learn from those? And I hope the answer is yes, because that's personal growth, personal development. That's being a better police officer tomorrow than you are today. That's what tomorrow's police officer is all about. So your amygdala is being hijacked. Your brain's being hijacked. It's being kidnapped. It's being 207. We got a 207 brain going on. 207, for those of you that are not in law enforcement, is the penal code section for kidnapping. So my brain's been kidnapped. Someone's taking over my amygdala. That little tiny almond-sized part of the brain that causes us to have emotions. And sometimes we lose emotional control. First thing to do, stop talking. Just for a moment. Now, in other videos, I've talked about the power of the pause. And the interesting thing about when you pause is it is a pattern interrupt for the other person, because you're not talking anymore. They expect you to be talking. You're going back and forth. And sometimes you're talking over the other person because you're starting to get so excited. Stop talking. It's a pattern interrupt for you. It's a pattern interrupt for the other person. It gives you a moment to collect your thoughts. First step, stop talking. Second step, listen. You're not hearing the other person. I guarantee you, if you have been triggered or they have been triggered, they're not hearing you, you're not listening. See, listening and hearing, I want to draw a real quick distinction. Hearing and listening are two totally different things. Hearing is a noun. Listening is a verb. Listening is something that you do. That's why they call it active listening. It is a participation sport. Hearing, it's passive. Sit back and watch the tennis match. Boop, boop, boop. For those of you who remember Pong, boop, boop, boop. It's just going back and forth. Now, what happens is this. When you start to actually listen to the other person, empathy begins to kick in. When you are listening to the other person and you're listening to understand, not listening to find a point to make them wrong. Remember one of my favorite phrases, you can be right or you can get it right. We're not trying to be right in an argument. Well, sometimes we are, and that's a wrong approach. We want to get it right. So I can have arguments all day long and be right. But it's different when you're listening to the other person so you can get it right. So first step, stop talking. Use the power of the pause. The second thing, listen to the other person. Now, when you have paused, oftentimes the other person, if they're even close to emotional control, they're going to pause because you've paused. And now they're going to, what's going on? Say to them, I want to listen to you. I want to really, really understand what you're saying because I think I'm missing something here. Even if you believe that you're totally understanding what they're saying, give them that opportunity, give them that space to explain themselves in a different way. So first step, stop talking. Second step, listen to understand. And the third step is this. Again, easy to understand, easy to remember, even easier to implement. Pause. So stop talking, pause, listen, which includes letting them know you want to understand what they're saying. And the third one is validate what they're saying. Now, validating what someone's saying does not mean that you agree with them. You're simply validating that you understand what they're saying and that they're feeling the emotions that they're feeling. You know, oftentimes in law enforcement, we deal with people who they're being unreasonable. They have unreasonable expectations. They have unreasonable beliefs. They have an unreasonable understanding of the situation. And that's okay. I mean, it's frustrating, but it's okay. It's okay because we understand that they're being unreasonable. They don't understand that. They don't believe that they're being unreasonable. But here's the interesting thing. When someone asks you to say again what you just said, or to tell me more about what you just said, help me understand what you just said. Oftentimes when they say it again, what sounded great in their head, now that they're hearing it, or what they said the first time sounded great, but now that they say it a second time, how many times did that happen to you? How many times have you said something and you're like, oh, now that I say that, it sounded a whole lot better up here than it did once I said it. So pause, stop talking, pause, use the power of the pause, pattern interrupt, stop talking, listen, and validate that you hear what the other person is saying and that they're experiencing the emotions that they're experiencing. That's empathy. When you do that, what that does for you is it changes completely what's going on with your amygdala. It takes all of the fear, the anger, the emotions, the tenseness, the stress that you're feeling, and it calms you down because you have redirected your brain in a completely different direction from where it was originally headed. Because what you're doing is you're showing, you're demonstrating, you're practicing empathy. And when you do that, your amygdala calms down. You start shifting your thinking to the prefrontal cortex, where you make much better, well-reasoned, sound decisions. I hope this has helped. There's a lot more information and resources at tomorrowspoliceofficer.com. You can also look at other 10 at 10 videos at Tomorrow's Police Officer on Facebook. So facebook.com/Tomorrow's Police Officer /live. It'll take you directly to it. You can also do a search for us on YouTube. Do me a favor. When you go to YouTube, would you please hit that subscribe button? See, once I get at least 100 subscribers on YouTube, what I get to do is I get to do a custom URL. And then I can tell people, hey, when you go to YouTube, just go to youtube.com/Tomorrow's Police Officer, and it'll take you directly to the YouTube channel where you can watch the other 10 at 10 videos, where I'm also talking about ways that you can communicate with compassion and communicate better with people and have better relationships. That's it for now. I hope that this has been valuable to you and that you'll continue to check us out every single day, 10 at 10. Until next time, please stay safe. Bye for now.